Hi there. So, welcome to week 12, and we are now in module 7. So, we are just cruising along. So, I wanted to walk through some of the things that we're going to cover this week, and I added an assignment for this week, so I want to walk you through that. And so, let's get started. So, for module 7, you're going to be reading about syntax, composition, and handwriting. But I'm actually going to present this week on more about reading comprehension strategies and also about print concepts, because I want to make sure that you have a good understanding of those before we move forward. So while the chapters that you're going to read are talking about writing, I'm going to be lecturing on reading comprehension, and then next week I will lecture a little bit on writing, so my lectures are going to be a little bit behind, but that's okay, because I just want to make sure that you have a really good understanding. So I just wanted to let you know that what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit different from what you're going to read for this week. So let's first look at the week 12 tasks. So this module is 1 week long, so everything is going to be done this week. So the first thing you're going to do is read the standards, objectives, and the vocabulary for syntax, composition, and handwriting. You're going to read chapter 11 and watch the videos, and then I want you to complete chapter 11 quiz. Your second draft of your literacy constructs resource guide is due on Sunday, and then your reading comprehension strategy assignment. So you don't have a module video discussion this week. I replaced that with a reading comprehension strategy assignment, which I will explain to you in just a minute. So just make sure that you're reading over these standards, objectives, and key vocabulary. You really need to understand what syntax is, what handwriting is, and what composition is. Now remember, as you're completing your literacy construct resource guide, this is where you'll find the explanation for what it is and how it develops. This is the Michigan Department of Education literacy standards, so I would use these. One bit of advice that I have for you is, so Michigan Department of Education wrote these standards for people in higher education, so professors. And so sometimes the way that it's worded doesn't really make it easy for you to understand the components, because it's significantly academic. And so it's not designed for you as much as it's designed for us to help us teach you these concepts. So I would suggest copying if you need to. Not everybody needs to, but just to kind of help you out if you need it. You could highlight what it is, this whole block right here. Copy that and paste it into either ChatGPT or Perplexity or Copilot, whatever AI tool that you use. Copy this and paste it in there and ask it to interpret this in words that are easily understandable. Or you could ask it to rephrase it more simply, more succinctly. And that should give you kind of a more digestible explanation of each of these concepts, what it is and how it develops. I just think that might be helpful. It's a really ethical way to use AI, and I often find it helpful when I'm really trying to connect with something and make sense of something, but it's really wordy and a little bit abstract. So this, if you copy this and paste it into AI and ask it to give you a more concrete explanation, then it'll kind of take out all of the abstract stuff and make it simpler for you to understand. And so, and then you could use that in your literacy construct resource guide and still cite Michigan Department of Education, because you're just paraphrasing what it is that they had created. So just a suggestion that you might want to consider. So make sure that you can describe syntax, composition, and handwriting and explain how they're important to literacy development. Describe how they develop, and then apply knowledge of syntax, composition, and handwriting to the classroom context. So being able to think about how these things actually play out in the classroom. Your vocabulary is over here: authentic purposes, composition, interactive writing, sentence combining, sentence framing, sentence expanding, and sentence structure. So make sure that you are comfortable with all of those things. Okay. Next, I relinked this literacy construct resource for you. So as you're coming up with activities, videos, things to support your literacy construct resource guide, you can look through these videos and see if any of them work for the construct that you're working on. So I just wanted to make sure I could help you as much as possible. Okay, so that's still there. And then this is where you'll submit your resource guide, the second draft. So your second draft should include print concepts, comprehension, excuse me, composition, handwriting, syntax, speaking, and listening, and then 2 caregiver newsletters. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more detail in just a second. So those are the constructs that it covers. And again, this is just a draft, so I'm going to be looking to see if you used the feedback that I gave you on draft 1 to help you with draft 2. Okay, and then your reading comprehension strategy assignment I'll get to in just a second, and then there's your chapter 11 quiz. So let's get into the actual presentation for today. Okay, so I'm going to give you a moment to think about any questions that you might have about the Literacy Constructs Resource Guide. I'm going to talk about concepts of print. I'm going to walk you through a reading comprehension strategy activity, and then we'll review what's due this week, again, just in case you need a reminder. Okay, so I want you to think about any questions that you might have about draft 2. And if you have any questions about it, make sure that you're emailing me, and so I can help you. I wanted to give you an example of a classroom newsletter. So I used Canva, and it's a fairly easy tool to use, and I'll walk you through that in just a second too, but I wanted to show you what it could look like. So this one's first grade news, Mr. Smith. The focus is reading comprehension, and then I talk to the families like I'm their teacher. So this week we're learning about how to make connections to the stories we read, because making connections is one strategy for reading comprehension. And so I'm focusing specifically on that strategy. Connections help us better understand and remember the story. And then the kinds of connections that we make are text to self, text to world, and text to text. And then I give them some questions to ask. So have you ever had a time when you missed your pets? So that's a text to self connection. Why might other people miss their pets? So that's a text to world connection. And then what other story did we read that made us feel sad? And that's a text to text connection. And then to learn more about this strategy, I embedded a video, which I encourage you to do. You can also embed activities for them to do with their kids at home. And then I just put next week we'll learn about making predictions. And so then my second newsletter might be about reading comprehension, making predictions. So what I want to tell you is, like, when you choose the construct, whether it's phonics or reading comprehension or motivation and engagement, you want to pick a smaller aspect of that. So you wouldn't do a whole newsletter on the 12 strategies for reading comprehension. You're going to choose reading comprehension and then pick one of the strategies that you want to target for your newsletter for that week. And so for this I did connections, making connections. So that is kind of an example of how you should be thinking through your newsletters. So I'm going to show you a little trick with Canva. And so and if you have the free version, that's fine. You can still access these things. But I just make sure that templates is lit up over here. And then in templates, I'll type classroom newsletter. And then all of these different templates come up. So you can choose whichever one kind of speaks to you and it seems more appropriate for the grade level that you're working with. So let's say you're working with kindergarten or first grade. This is a first grade template. You can open this one, take a look at it and see if you like it. If you like it, then you're going to click here where it says customize this template. And it's going to open it up in a way that you're able to manipulate all of the things in it. Okay? So you can change the title of it, you can change the colors of the letters, you can change the graphics if you want, you can change the wording in here, okay? There's room for you to put a video in there, or in the case that you might want to link to an activity, one of the things I'd like to show you is let's change contact info to resources or activities. And then let's do reading comprehension. Now, what you can do is go to Florida Center for Reading Research and go to the center activities. And we have I'm working with first grade, so I'm going to go to first grade, and then I'm going to click Comprehension. I'm going to look at the activities. They have their sentence meaning, narrative text structure, maybe, I kind of like this story sequence organizer, so I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to copy this link, and it's called Story Sequence Organizer. So I'm going to go back to my newsletter and do Story Sequence Organizer, and then I'm going to link it. This little link here lets you copy and paste your link in. Oh, my link didn't work for some reason. Let me go back to this. I'm going to copy link address and try it again. There. That time it worked. So then your newsletter, the link is right here, but the family will be able to see what they're linking to. Okay, so that's a way that you can do that. And then you just would, to share your newsletter once you have it all completed, you can download it as a PDF or as an image. I prefer PDF, and then you're going to upload it to the assignment. So when you get to the place where you are, where you're submitting your second draft, you're actually going to submit the second draft and the 2 drafts of your letters. Okay, your 2 newsletter drafts. So you're actually going to upload 3 things: the second draft of your LCRG, and then your 2 newsletters. Okay. Now, another thing you can do if you want to like enhance what you're doing, make it more accessible, you can take this newsletter and make a copy of it. In Canva, you can make a copy of any document that you're working in. And then for each of these items, you could actually copy it and paste it into AI and ask it to translate it into another language and then paste it in here. So you could make your a second newsletter in Spanish. So if you were a classroom teacher and you know you have Spanish speaking students in your class and families, one side could be the English side, and the second on the back you could do a Spanish speaking side. And what a great way for you to connect with other families and demonstrate to them that it matters to you, that they're able to understand what's happening in the classroom, and that you're supporting their children in their multilingual lives. So that's just some examples of things that you can do as you're working on your second draft. Okay, so I want you to take a moment, and on a separate sheet of paper, I want you to write down, describe what reading comprehension is and how it develops, and then I want you to describe what you believe print concepts are and how they develop. So I'm going to have you pause here, write those things down on a separate sheet of paper, and then come back to this recording. Okay, so print concepts, it seems like print concepts seem really basic, but they're super important. So print concepts involve the fact that print carries meaning, and so understanding that printed words and symbols are used to convey messages and ideas. So it isn't just in a book, it isn't just the printed words, but there's other things, particularly in picture books, that convey meaning, and how it's important for us to use those things to help us understand what we're reading. Book handling skills, knowing how to hold a book right side up and being able to turn the pages and identify the front and back covers. Directionality is really important, recognizing that English text is read from left to right and top to bottom. So that's an important print concept. Understanding the differences between letters, words, and sentences, identifying the spaces between words, and then understanding the role of punctuation is super important. Awareness of upper versus lowercase letters, knowing the alphabet, and then knowing what punctuation marks mean. What is their purpose? What are they doing? And then all of these concepts, print concepts, are important because once we know and understand print concepts, it's a strong predictor of later reading success. If we know that using all uppercase letters might might be meaning that someone's yelling, or might indicate importance. Like that helps us understand what we're reading better. It supports comprehension and helps us make sense of and better comprehend texts. It assists with communication and encourages critical thinking. So I have an activity for you to do. We're going to listen to a book. It's called Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. While you're listening to this picture book, I want you to make note of the print concepts that you notice, and then I want you to think about how they support understanding of the text, and then think about what or how you would explain these print concepts to children and students, your future students. So we're going to take a listen to this book real quick, and then I want you to be making note of these things, and we'll talk a little bit about them when it's done.
Don't let the pigeon drive the bus.
Words and Pictures by Mo Willems.
Hi, I'm the bus driver. Listen, I've got to leave for a little while, so can you watch things for me until I get back? Thanks. Oh, and remember, don't let the pigeon drive the bus.
I thought he'd never leave. Hey, can I drive the bus? Please?
So one thing I want you to notice in this particular page is look at that bubble up here. What's different about this type of speech bubble compared to other ones? Look at the wavy line right here. What might that be indicating? What do you think? Does it change how you read this? Think about that.
Be careful.
So I want you to think about, look at this one. This one's just a typical speech bubble, but this one has some wiggle to it, which might change the meaning, right? It might help you actually read this page in a way that helps support comprehension.
Please? I'll be careful. I tell you what, I'll just steer. My cousin Herb drives a bus almost every day. True story.
So look at, again, the little squiggle up here. There's no words here, but it might indicate to you, like when you're reading it, that you should go, not like this actually has meaning, right?
Vroom, vroom, vroomy, vroom, vroom.
Okay. And vroom, vroom, vroomy, vroom, vroom. Actually, those are all uppercase letters. What does that indicate? How would you read that? And then look at the speech bubble. It's more pronounced and it's real pointy. So it indicates, the meaning of that indicates like some urgency, right?
Pigeon at the wheel. No? I never get to do anything. Hey, I've got an idea. Let's play Drive the Bus. I'll go first. Come on, just once around the block. I'll be your best friend. How about I give you $5? No fair. I bet your mom would let me. What's the big deal? It's just a bus.
So here's another example. There's an exclamation point and a question mark. So that does tell you how to read this particular section right here. So you're reading it as a question, but also with a lot of feeling. So you would read it, what's the big deal?
I have dreams, you know. Fine.
So this is a really great example of print concepts. Look at these letters. Not only are they uppercase letters, they're in bold and they're huge and they cover the whole page. And then you've got all of these images of pigeon in all kinds of like positions. And so this might indicate that it's really important to the pigeon, and it does kind of show you or tell you how you should read this to kids when you're reading this page.
Let me drive the bus.
I'm back. You didn't let the pigeon drive the bus, did you? Great. Thanks a lot.
Uh-oh.
Bye.
Hey.
So that part right there was really a good example of ellipses and teaching kids what ellipses mean. That there's an idea brewing, but we don't really know what it is. It's, hey, dot, 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 something's brewing in my brain. Okay, so this is a really good example of a picture book that you could use to teach print concepts to kids. So take a moment and think about what other things you noticed other than the things that I pointed out. And how did those things support understanding of the text? And how might you explain these concepts to children? So how would you explain the squiggly thought bubble? How might you, let's go back to the very beginning. There is a spot here that there's a colon right here. What do colons mean? And what might this indicate to kids, and how would you read that differently? So take a moment and just think about the things that you saw in this video and how you might explain them to kids. Okay, so the next part of the lecture is about the reading comprehension strategies, and I'm gonna walk you through what your assignment is for this week related to reading comprehension strategies. So the first thing we're gonna do is look at the types of strategies. So these came right from our textbook. One reading comprehension strategy is activating background knowledge. Another one is setting a purpose. Another one is connecting. There's evaluating, drawing inferences, determining importance, making predictions, questioning, repairing, and monitoring. So these are two separate strategies. One is repairing and one is monitoring. There's summarizing and visualizing. So each of these strategies help us with reading comprehension. Okay, so just a quick reminder, there's no video discussion for this module because you're going to be doing this reading comprehension strategy assignment. You'll want to do quiz 11, and draft number 2 is due this week. So I'm going to exit out of this PowerPoint so that I can show you what your assignment is, this reading comprehension strategy assignment. Okay, so it's right here in Module 7. If you click on that and open it up, there's a table that has the reading comprehension strategies are on the right, so you'll see all of them here. And then you should be able to find your name somewhere on the left. You're being assigned a particular reading comprehension strategy. You do not have to work in partners. I just needed to double people up on specific strategies. So you're not working as partners, you're working independently. And what you're going to do is use a piece of paper, you can use a whiteboard or any other drawing material that you have handy, and you're going to create a graphic that includes what the strategy is, how it should be used, so what steps are involved, how it supports reading comprehension, so in other words, why it's used, and then any additional information that's important to know when using the strategy. So your graphic can be an illustration, a Venn diagram, a concept web, or any other design. The goal is for you to draw it out in a way that demonstrates the purpose of the strategy, how it's used, and how it helps students understand and remember what they read. So I want you to draw it in such a way that you could use it to explain the strategy to your future students. Then once you're finished, I want you to just take a photo of the graphic you created and upload it to this assignment link. So last week I gave you extra credit points for taking notes and taking pictures of your notes and uploading it. This time you're all expected to complete this assignment. It's not extra credit, it's an actual graded assignment. But you can draw it in whatever format you want. So if you have access to a classroom and you have a big whiteboard, feel free to use that big space. Or you can do it on a piece of paper, construction paper, whatever is comfortable for you that allows you to really demonstrate what you know about this reading comprehension strategy. And you want to have some fun with this. Draw it out in a way that you could use it to explain how this strategy works to kids. So think about students in your future classroom who might really struggle with reading comprehension. So let's say you're doing connecting as a strategy. In your textbook, connecting says that students add text to self, text to world, and text to text connections to help them make sense of text. So you can get more information about the strategy in your textbook. You can also do a little bit of research on your own, and then think through, like, how would you draw that out in a way that would make sense to kids, like what the strategy is, how you would use it, what are the steps involved, and then maybe even if there's questions like the self-monitoring, there might be some questions that you would want to add to your graphic to help kids. So just think of anything that might be useful for your future students to know in order to actually use that strategy. And then make sure that you're describing the strategy so that I know you understand the purpose of the strategy. And so you'll just upload your photo to this assignment link when you are done. And that is due Sunday. So if you have any questions at all, please just let me know. And I'm going to actually unhide these videos. These are for you to watch for this week that talk about composition and syntax. So okay, so hopefully that helps kind of clarify things for you. I'm going to get busy grading. I got behind because of my trip, so apologies for that. But if you have any questions at all, please let me know. Have a great week.